For those who have just watched Detroit defeat Cleveland State, welcome to the Heinz Athletic Center in New Rochelle, New York, for a Friday night MAC showdown between arch rivals Iona and Manhattan. We are just underway with no score. Along with Tim McCormick, I'm Doug Sherman, and the Gales are on the board first, thanks to Mike Poole.
It doesn't matter, Doug, if you like great offense or stifling defense. You can get both here tonight. These are the top two scoring teams in the MAC, and you've got Manhattan, who's great on the defensive end, too.
Isaiah Williams with a big block shot. His pass deflected. Gales keep it in front of a capacity crowd. These two campuses are roughly 9 miles apart. The series goes back decades.
Manhattan plays intense pressure defense.
Shot rims out on Trey Bowman, the Penn State transfer. Here goes Michael Alvarado, strong to the cup. Quickly back the other way. Armand has his pass deflect off of Bowman back to him. And the most prolific three-point shooter in Iona history misses. Mike Poole, the takeaway.
A really quick Iona lineup. Very unique because they've got big guards and an extremely small front line of their 5 starters. All are guards or small forwards between 6'4" and 6'7". And they don't have a true point guard.
Another steal. It's Poole again, dropping it off. The layup by A.J. English.
If anybody should be good at handling full court pressure, it's the Jaspers. They practice against their own press every single day.
This is Rashawn Stores, a 5'11 junior from the Bronx. His old high school teammate at All Hallows, Michael Alvarado, another point guard for this club. Here's Alvarado, who's been on a scoring binge in recent weeks. Back out to Stores. And it'll stay at this end. Well, in our one-on-one, we're talking, Tim, the Manhattan defense against the Iona offense.
Steve Masiello's a defensive mastermind for Manhattan. The Jaspers, the best in the conference. And for Tim Cluse, he's an offensive guru for Iona, the highest scoring, most dangerous offense in the conference.
Manhattan leads the league in steals per game, turnover margin, blocks per game, field goal percentage defense, and in scoring margin. Alvarado is fouled by Williams. Well, as mentioned, these two teams have been playing each other 2 or 3 times every year, dating back decades, and this is the 83rd meeting with the Gales having the better of it. And most importantly, most recently, they met in Springfield, Mass. for the 2013 MAC Championship, and the Gales prevailed to go on to the NCAAs last year.
I asked Tim Cluse, do you hate your rivals? He says, I don't like them enough to hate them.
Well, you could tell from the way he didn't want to answer any of the questions you posed to him about the rivalry. He didn't want to incriminate himself. Ramel Brown, one of 3 seniors who are in the 1,000-point club from Manhattan. First time in school history, they've had 3 guys from the same class get to 1,000 career points.
Massive front line advantage. Ramel Brown is about 40 pounds heavier than Isaiah Williams. I don't think they can keep him off the boards or deal with him in the low post. That's why Iona wants this a really super fast game. Remember, the faster the pace, the less important the big guys are.
There you see Beeman, Alvarado, and Brown, the big 3 senior class. In the ball game now, number 23, Rich Williams, a freshman from Brooklyn, and the Jaspers tie the ball game at 6. Well, this is an Iona team that has led the country in scoring each of the last 2 years. And while they score over 80 per game this year, they check in at 13th most in the country. But still, they love to get up and down. Alvarado off the long rebound is fouled by English. Well, it's what we've expected. Intensity and competitive basketball tied 6-6 early. ESPN.
20 minutes or 2.5 hours. Coach Masiello was telling us that 2 years ago on the bus trip, the bus actually died, and they had to take 8 cabs over to this game. They were down 17 with 7 minutes to go, came back and won it at the buzzer on a bucket by Emi Andujar.
And Emi Andujar, who is a Gales killer in this rivalry, comes to the scorer's table and will check in for the first time momentarily. Big rebound by Trey Bowman. Well, they had to hold up that game because of the bus breaking down and going with the taxi cabs for about 15, 20 minutes at the start. No such problems here tonight. Sean Armand.
Steve Masiello said his goal in this game is they don't get threes. He said that if Iona's going to beat us, it's going to have to be with twos, but that's so deep. Doug, how do you cover that?
As a team, Iona shoots 41% from beyond the arc. That's the best in the MAC. Their entire backcourt, everybody shoots over 40%. There's Manhattan's best sniper, Shane Richards. Donovan Cates into the ball game with the basketball.
Jaspers go 11 deep. They platoon so guys stay fresh. Here's the deal. You go in there for 4 minutes and sprint as fast as you can. We'll get you some rest.
Richards, tough shot. Good closeout by Poole, and Iona's got the basketball. Now, we've talked about how the Gales love to get up and down, but the reality is, as Armand gets a 2, how do you keep this tempo going when you've only got 8 healthy bodies right now?
That's the challenge, and I just wonder, because of depth, if Manhattan has a second half advantage.
Gales with the basketball up by 2. English with a nice no-look pass to Williams.
Wow. Don't be surprised. Iona's goal is 20 assists per game. This is regarded as the best passing team in the Metro Atlantic.
Rich Williams with the deep answer of his own.
Have you heard the rumor that kids nowadays just don't shoot as well as they used to? If you hear that, have them tune into this game, because these are two teams that are sharpshooters.
No doubt about that. You and I were here 2 Fridays ago when Iona and Canisius, one of the other teams battling for the regular season championship, showed that shooting is not a problem in this conference. 2 Gales late to get back, so the Jaspers have numbered. Cates goes right to the rim. Stripped by Poole. And now wholesale line changes. 4 new players coming in for Steve Masiello. He's the 3rd-year head coach of the Jaspers, who has turned this program back around. 2000 graduate of the University of Kentucky, where he played under Tubby Smith and Rick Pitino. Beeman, Alvarado, Andujar, Richards, and Ashton Pankey, the 5 on the floor for the Jaspers. This is Pankey. The Maryland transfer connects. David Lowry will go to the free throw line. Meanwhile, there's Tim Cluse in year number 4 at Iona. He has taken the Gales to back-to-back NCAA tournaments, 2 years ago as an at-large invite, and then last year as the automatic bid winner from the MAC tournament.
I asked him yesterday, how have you been able to establish this passing culture? So many kids nowadays, all they want to shoot. And he said that he comes from a legendary basketball family in Long Island, and as a 3rd grader, he used to go to St. Thomas Playground, and he watched his brothers play. He was so inspired by their supreme passing ability, it became part of his DNA.
And all 4 Cluse boys went on to play for Lou Carnesecca at St. John's. Tied at 14, 12:33 remaining in the half. Andujar, nice pass, but Richards could not get it up. Armand was all over him. Here goes Armand. Poole. Kind of an awkward drive, but he's able to convert. Former Rutgers Scarlet Knight now with 6 points, and he's got Iona back on top.
This is a trip that Pankey should get the ball inside.
Beeman lost the dribble and went through the legs of Pankey, and Iona's got it. Here's Lowry. Deshaun Gomez picks up his dribble. Now Poole puts it up. That's an air ball. It goes out of bounds, untouched. Coming up, Tim McCoy.
Your high-low, space the court is the key. We got to really space the court and look inside.
Your pressure, is it satisfactory right now? That's the best thing you do.
I like it. I like us to do a little more. I'd like us to get after more.
Steve, what can we look for the rest of the half?
Just scored.
Beeman, that's a good sign.
Great sign for us.
What can we look for the rest of the half?
Play hard and talk more. That's going to be our thing. Just keep playing hard. Keep playing hard. Stay after it.
Thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of the half.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Coach Masiello, for that inside look over on the Manhattan bench. I'm actually surprised he didn't look to my partner, who's 6'11" and a former NBA player, and say, get in the ball game. But as he mentioned, a little play-by-play himself, Coach Masiello let you know that George Beeman had scored his first bucket. Likewise for Deshaun Gomez, knocking down the three. Mike Alvarado, the 6'1" senior from the Bronx, with Stores, Andujar, Beeman, and Pankey. Jaspers come into the ballgame 7-3 in league play. The Gales 8-2, tied with Canisius in the loss column for first place. Block shot by Poole, and here comes Iona once again. Inglis well under control, but he can't get the jumper to fall. Alvarado pulls it back out midway through the first half.
I was hoping Coach Masiello might let me call a timeout or diagram a play or something sitting on his bench.
I was waiting for him to look at you and say, wait a second, I've got a 6'11" guy who played 8 years in the NBA. What are you sitting here for, Tim? Get in the ball game.
I would have done it. I don't think I could handle the action like Ramel Brown and Pankey.
David Lowry, who is crafty with a basketball, gets his first two. Alvarado quickly back the other way, reties the ball game at 21. Armand, blocked by Beeman. Armand again. Poole a third time, Lowry a fourth time. Saturday, ESPNU brings you a full day of college basketball, including a pair of games featuring two of the nation's top teams. At 3 Eastern, Evansville faces undefeated and 4th-ranked Wichita State. And at 9 Eastern, UCF takes on number 12 Louisville and Russ Smith. Both games are also live on Watch ESPN. The Shockers 22-0, 9-0 in the Missouri Valley Conference, and along with Syracuse and Arizona, the only 3 remaining unbeaten.
With all the Super Bowl coverage, David Lowry's trying to do his best Peyton Manning, Russell Wilson interpretation. He threw the bomb and got picked off.
Well, as we sit here in New Rochelle, Tim, we're about a 25-mile drive from MetLife Stadium over in New Jersey. You just jump on 95 South, you go over the GW Bridge, and before you know it, you're at the Super Bowl. So this is a New York state of mind. We've got this rivalry. You've got Kevin Durant in town with the Oklahoma City Thunder. You've got LeBron James in town with the Miami Heat. And then, of course, the big game on Sunday night.
Pretty amazing that with all the Super Bowl hype, the New York Times had a quote today that really goes to the heart and soul of this rivalry.
Well, at the start of the article, The Times said this is perhaps the best basketball rivalry running in New York, and there's not a person in this building who would disagree. There again, the craftiness of David Lowry. Off another takeaway. Here comes English, and he throws it down.
I'm glad that I'm not in Steve Masiello's huddle right now. I don't think that I would want anybody to hear what he's most passionate about is branding. He wants everything these guys to do in the classroom, when they walk around campus, when they go on the court. It's all about communication and effort. He wants a positive brand in everything they do.
So far, it has been working in year number 3. They are 14-5 overall. 8 of those 14 wins have come on the road, which is the second most road victories in the entire country. Alvarado blocked by Williams. The Jaspers will keep it with 11 seconds on the shot clock. If you're wondering why everybody is wearing number 14 tonight when there's no current number 14 on the Iona roster, it's because they are honoring this man tonight, Richie Guerin, who was inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame last year. He is becoming the first Iona basketball player tonight to have his number retired.
What a legend. He was drafted and played for the New York Knicks back in '54. And I asked him, I said, Mr. Guerin, what are you doing these days? He spends about 8 months of the year down in Florida playing golf. And he said his playing partners are John Havlicek and Bob Cousy. How much fun would that be? And Doug, I'm trying to set up a round for you next week with that threesome. They need somebody like you to play.
I could carry the bags for those guys and have a great time. Layup by Beeman coming out of the timeout. The Jaspers cut it to 2. And Richie Guerin, now 79, as you mentioned. I asked him before the ball game his greatest memories of being in Iona Gale, and he said it was playing in the old Garden in games against Dayton and Manhattan when they got, as a school, national attention for the first time.
Wow.
Beeman kicks the ball. And I asked him if anything on campus still looks the same. He said no. He said the gymnasium we played in, O'Connell Gymnasium, is up the hill and long gone.
You wonder who's next in line. I would have to imagine that Jim Valvano, who is a great coach here, or maybe Jeff Rulin, former All-American and really good head coach here.
Yeah, and your former NBA teammate. Perhaps Sean Armand someday. Knocks down his second three-pointer, makes it a 5-point Iona lead.
Sean Armand is flat out the greatest shooter in Iona history. And he's so inspired, he's actually playing some defense. He doesn't always do that.
A little bit later on, we will show you, take you inside how Sean Armand perfects that beautiful jump shot of his.
He's really an inspiring story. In high school, really small school, no offers, and he went to prep school and worked on his game, and he's approaching 2,000 points.
He's from Brooklyn. He's a very proud Brooklynite, as most of them are. But he went into New York City, into Manhattan, to play at Jackie O High School, not a basketball power. He didn't go there with the intention of playing college basketball, but he sprouted 3 inches, kept working on his game. Like you said, went to prep school, and before you know it, he's a standout performer here at Iona for the 4th straight year. Armand, though, is injured, laying down on the floor. Now he does get up as play continues, and a blocking foul. Armand holding his chin. He looks over to his head coach and gives a thumbs up, saying he's all right.
Notice he's in great position. Looks like a charge to me. He gets stepped on and kicked by his own teammate. So I was thinking, yeah, this is a rivalry. People are going to be knocking each other around. It was his own teammate doing the damage.
Well, he seems to be okay.
Offensively, Iona is so talented. They score from all 5 positions, and just look at the size. These are rangy athletes, all between 6'4" and 6'7", and that shooting spreads the court and allows them to drive.
Pretty smart move by English, who inbounded the ball off the back of his opponent, Pankey, who wasn't looking at him. And then Pankey, in his haste, fouled English and sent him to the line.
Pretty good bloodline for A.J. English. May remember that name.
Well, he's not the son of Alex English, but his father did play in the NBA. A.J. the second played 2 years with the old Washington Bullets out of Virginia Union. But Albert James English III, very proud of his father's professional career as well. And here is English with the basketball. The point guard by default, really. But as you talked about, they are very deep in the backcourt. Kind of interchangeable parts. Armand is called for the charge. Nice idea along the baseline. Just made a little too much contact with the defender.
There's Emi Andahar, impacts the game in so many ways, and referees did not see what we saw. Glancing blow should not have been a charge. Doug, here's the deal. Ramel Brown is a force. He's a beast in the low post, and he cannot be covered. They have not done a good enough job getting him the ball.
Coach McCormick with the call. There you see the standings with Canisius on top by a half game over Iona, and Manhattan at 7-3 right in the mix, along with Quinnipiac and Ryder. And so Ramel Brown goes to the free throw line, where he has improved markedly this year, jumping up to 65% from a year ago being under 50%.
Number 5, kind of an unusual number for a big man. He was 32 as a sophomore, but his favorite player was point guard Jason Kidd. So before last season, he decided to switch.
And he is still playing this senior season through some Achilles pain. He tells me it changes some of his approach on defense in terms of how he blocks shots. And he is a prolific shot blocker, but he says he doesn't go after every shot like he normally would. Williams picks up the loose ball, and he'll go to the stripe. Sunday before the big game, don't miss a College Hoops doubleheader on ESPNU. At 12:30 Eastern, Virginia faces number 18 Pittsburgh on a special early edition of ACC Sunday Night Basketball. Then at 2:30 Eastern, it's a Pac-12 battle between UCLA and Oregon State. Both games also live on Watch ESPN.
Let me tell you about my favorite player in the ACC. His name is Lamar Patterson. He plays for Pitt. Does everything well. I will tune in to that game just to see him.
Well, he's a guy who has improved over his time at Pittsburgh markedly. Now a dead-eye three-point shooter. And you know, his older brother used to be the starting quarterback at my alma mater, Syracuse.
I did not know that.
A.J. English takes a seat. Well, how about tomorrow night's game at 6:30 up at the Carrier Dome between Syracuse and Duke? Everybody in college basketball is looking forward to it. What are your thoughts about that one, Tim?
I think that Duke has a great chance to win if they're able to use their break and their transition to score before the zone sets up.
That'll be 6:30 on ESPN tomorrow night.
That's not what you wanted to do, was it?
No. But I don't consider you to be Nostradamus necessarily.
But when you look at the numbers, Tyler Ennis deserves All-American consideration, the most productive player on an undefeated team. And Jabari Parker and Julius Randle and Andrew Wiggins, they're the freshman phenoms, and they've all had some mini slumps. Tyler Ennis has not had any slump yet. He's been fabulous from the first game.
And here's my favorite number, Tim, for Tyler Ennis. Last 5 minutes of the game, he has yet to commit a turnover this year while also shooting better than 50%.
Amazing.
That's why they're unbeaten.
Yes.
Their point guard does not make mistakes. Shot clock down to 10. Poole lost the dribble out of bounds. Oh, by the way, that game tomorrow night is believed to be the first matchup of the two winningest coaches since 1922, when Fog Allen took his Kansas Jayhawks to Minnesota to play Lewis Cook.
Is Lewis Cook a college, or is that a coach? My history doesn't go back quite that far.
Nor does mine. That's some tremendous ESPN research at work. Donovan Cates was strong off the window, and Ramel Brown was the last to touch.
Very good idea. Don't settle for jump shots. There's no shot blocking at all for the Gales in the paint.
Well, ever since Tim Cluse took over at Iona 4 years ago, he has really not gone with any traditional big post players. And so 2 years ago, when they got the at-large bid, as Williams now has to walk off the floor, holding his nose.
At 6'7", 200 pounds effectively, he's spending a lot of time as their starting center. Remember, 200 pounds against Ramel Brown, who's 245.
You can see he has blood coming out of his nose. And we knew this would be a physical ball game. These two teams do not like each other, separated by roughly 9 miles. The players, many of them know each other, have played with and against each other through AAU ball, high school basketball, pickup basketball, and here in college.
Well, in a conversation with Sean Armand today, he was saying this summer Ramel Brown and Emmy Andujar came over to Iona's gym, and they played open gym. They ran up and down, and he said, man, I wish Ramel Brown was on my team. I love playing with that guy. And Sean is known as a gunner. I said, yeah, absolutely. You've got a guy that just defends and rebounds and passes and doesn't need shots. That's more shots for Sean.
He's the ultimate teammate. So as Isaiah Williams receives treatment on his nose, let's give you that inside look at Sean Armand and how he perfects his unbelievable jump shot. No matter when you get here to the Heinz Athletic Center, you're apt to see Mr. Armand out there just taking shots.
You've heard about the gun. It's a shooter's best friend. I'm admiring the work of Sean Armand, the greatest shooter in Iona history. In his career, he's got 306 threes, shooting over 42%. Here's how you can, before class or before you go to bed at night, get up 400 threes in only 30 minutes. And Sean Armand is pure. There's no doubt about it. And I asked him, Sean, how many shots have you taken since you walked on campus? He thought for a second, said, I would estimate 500,000 shots. That's
wow.
Why he's good.
Wow. Well, I think he was 6 for 8 in that video clip with the pressure on, with Tim McCormick standing right there. So that's pretty good, too. And he shoots it so effortlessly, and as we've talked about in games past, he doesn't just shoot it from 21 or 22 feet. He's got the ability to stretch it out 25, 26, even 27 feet.
And on the shooting machine, he's got to the point now where he uses it to practice shot fakes and being able to go off the dribble. Very, very diversified. He's really expanded his game.
As the officials took more looks at the injury to Williams to make sure no flagrant foul had been committed. Now play resumes. Trey Bowman, David Lowry has come back into the game. Here's Lowry. He is effective in the paint without being able to get off the floor. He's got 7, and Iona's lead is 35-27.
Iona switching every single screen.
Ramel Brown with a nice move. Working in space. Here comes the double team. Back out to Gomez. Alvarado. Strong move and finish with the left. Lowry brings it back out. Poole penetrates. Little finger roll.
A lot of layups both ways. If you want a reason, these are attack-style defenses. They're out covering the three-point line, which creates a lot of gaps and seams to get inside. Once again, I would force feed that ball into Ramel Brown. He's a tough scorer and a willing passer.
Alvarado again into the lane. Blocked from behind. It was Poole once again. The Jaspers will keep possession when we come back. These are the Max top, not only to win at the Dome tomorrow night, but to challenge for a national title.
Absolutely not. They have perimeter skills that are national championship good, but they don't have the interior toughness. In a lot of ways, Jabari Parker, who's a small forward, is their best interior player. They don't have that hammer, that big guy that can rebound and defend the post.
Brown, the offensive rebound for Manhattan. The Jaspers down by 6. Alvarado, another paint touch. Unable to finish this time. Back the other way comes Poole. Lowry lost the dribble, gets it back. Poole's given room from the high post, and he makes them pay.
Mike Poole brings a lot to the table. Big East experience. He played at Rutgers. So think about it. He's gone head-to-head with Otto Porter and C.J. Fair. He's not going to be intimidated by anybody.
He leads all scorers so far tonight with 10. Lowry tipped it up, and it nearly went into the wrong basket. The help defender, Ramel Brown, came over and blocked the shot, but with his offhand, he grabbed the net to secure himself. Nothing but net for Shane Richards.
Big question of this first half, and it essentially answers why Iona is up. Do they look composed against this intense Manhattan defense? The answer is yes. Only 3 turnovers in the first half for the Gales.
These are a couple of senior-laden teams. 3 starters are seniors for both clubs. So not surprising that in spite of the intense heat, they're able to handle that heat.
That is a huge mistake. Leaving Shane Richards, a pure shooter, on the all-MAC freshman team last year. Steve Masiello said this kid's got NBA range. He's a great student, and someday you can expect him to be an academic All-American for Manhattan.
He grew up on the Upper East Side of Manhattan and did not get any other Division I college basketball offers but from Manhattan. And he came in last year and was the co-rookie of the year in the MAC. Nobody guarded Wilson. He just backs it out with 15 on the shot clock. Here goes Wilson, strong to the bucket. Can't get the roll. And it's Gales basketball.
Man, Manhattan has missed a ton of layups in this game. If they just make their point-blank shots, they're comfortably ahead.
30-second timeout.
Iona calls timeout.
The similarity, Steph Curry, a mid-major guy, pure shooter, more of a shooting guard that's constantly working on his handle. Remember, he's not a Steph Curry player, but when you can shoot the ball, when you're a specialist, there may be a team that's looking for a guy like Sean Armand.
Coming up in our halftime report, we'll talk more Blue Devils Orange, our blockbuster Saturday slate as well, and of course our highlights and stats of this rivalry showdown in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. Final 5 seconds of the half. Here goes Poole, who's had a big first half. A.J. English catches the front rim, and that'll do it for the first 20 minutes. We talked about his relationship many times with Rick Pitino, and the genesis of that was as a teenager, he had a random chance meeting with the then Knicks point guard Mark Jackson, who invited him to practice. He then got invited to be a Knicks ball boy down at Madison Square Garden, did that for years, and then played for Coach Pitino and coached under Coach Pitino after they first met when he was the head coach of the Knicks.
All right, here's what I want you to watch for. George Beeman is an elite competitor. He has been shut down in this game. He is going to be extremely aggressive to start this second half.
Beeman is number 24 in green. He averages nearly 20 points per game. Third leading scorer in the conference, and he took only 3 shots in that first half. Second foul on Williams, and so Ramel Brown, the senior from Brooklyn, out of Transit Tech, is at the free throw line.
Ramel is a macho guy, and Steve Masiello calls him a pro. His coach thinks that of all the 5 big guys that he has coached at Louisville that went on to play in the NBA, we're talking about Earl Clark and Samardo Samuels, Gorgie Jeng. He thinks that Brown is the best of that group.
Yeah. Blocking shots is his calling card. He is an ace. Second most blocked shots in the history of this conference, behind only Fairfield's Deng Gai. Armand, English, Poole, Williams, and Coleman starting for Iona. Good to see Williams back on the floor after he suffered a nose injury in that first half. Offensive foul against English.
If you like perimeter basketball, you're going to like this. Look how far out that shot is, and it was contested. There's nobody in the paint right there, and A.J. English with the forearm shiver.
Well, Alvarado, who got a piece of that shot from Sean Armand, those guys play together in the summer. So they certainly know each other's tendencies. 3-second violation against Brown and the Jaspers.
Was that just a 3-second call?
It was.
When's the last time you saw one of those? That's old school. Maybe that's in honor of Richie Guerin.
Well, this is Richie Guerin night here at Iona College. He's not only the first Iona basketball player to have his uniform number retired, he's the first athlete in the history of this school to be so honored. And inducted last September into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, went on to play for the New York Knicks and for the old St. Louis Hawks. He was their player coach in both St. Louis and in Atlanta, and being honored here tonight at his alma mater.
Plus, he was a Marine.
Oh, by the way, should put that at the top of the list. And a nice touch by the Iona College administration tonight, bringing in a number of current Marines to help recognize Richie Guerin. Armand working on Alvarado, this time from the right side. His step back, and he left it short. Alvarado goes by Armand at the other end. The senior from the Bronx now into double figures, and he's cut the lead to 2. Williams blocked by Brown. Hemi Andujar back the other way. Scores. Will shoot 2. That block shot by Ramel Brown. How on earth, with the angle that he had, did he get up there and get that shot?
I have no idea. You'd think people would stop challenging him. And one of the beautiful things about this transition, Ramel Brown is just a force covering the basket. And one of the things that was so good about igniting that fast break, Steve Masiello said their break is so effective because from the time the rebound occurs, they want the ball over half court within 4 seconds. And I was counting, it was about 3, just a hair under 3. So that was as good as you're going to find on an outlet and a score at the other end.
And with that block shot, he kept it in play, got it to one of his teammates, and helped to trigger that fast break. 1 out of 2 from the line for Stores, 39-37. English uses the Lowry screen. Bowman came flying in but couldn't finish. Alvarado had a seam. Couldn't get it to Brown. The officials confer.
All right, let's take a look at that fast break. Remember, they want the ball over half court. Watch the clock in the lower right. There it is at 35. And they got it over half court in 2.5 seconds. Over half court.
I wasn't a math major, but I think that's under 4.
It's under 4. I think they scored in 4.5 seconds.
I do too. That's a Loyola Marymount 20 years ago type of pace. Stores. And there is a long story that'll touch your heart with that. The Kluses, he's part of a family on Long Island. They were basically the Kennedys of Long Island basketball growing up, and he was one of 4 boys who were terrific basketball players, went on to play at St. John's, but his older brothers, Greg and Kevin, both died young of cancer. Greg at the age of 26 to lymphoma. Kevin at 33 to leukemia. That was a big part of the reason why Tim never wanted to leave Long Island, because of family matters and how close he was to family. And so for every game at Iona, Tim wears Greg's old NIT watch, one that hasn't kept time in years. He wears a pin of an angel and a basketball in memory of both Greg and Kevin, and half of a mitzvah charm that reads, quote, "May the Lord watch between me and thee while we are apart from one another." And the other half of that pin, well, it rests inside Kevin's suit in his casket.
Tim Kluse, you can see a close-up of the pin, is really a heck of a coach. He's coached at all different levels: high school, JC, D2, D1, and he's always stayed right where he's at.
And he's a man of great faith, devoted family man, devoted father, and still drives from Long Island to here at New Rochelle every day. Never wanted to uproot his family. His Kluse family means everything to him.
George Beeman alert. You do not want him to get going on the offensive end. He's got a 3-point play and a layup in his last 2 possessions, and he can heat up.
Brown with another block shot. The run continues for the Manhattan Jaspers. 11-0 start to the second. Commitments scheduled to be announced on air. Did you hold a press conference when you picked the Michigan Wolverines?
I did. There were like 5 or 6 people.
A little different back in the late 70s, early 80s, I imagine.
Yeah.
Sean Armand finally gets the Gales on the board here in half number 2.
I always like to see teams succeed out of a timeout, a sign of very good coaching.
That's not just by happenstance that Armand gets that look out of the timeout. Lowry puts it on the deck and loses it to Stores. 3-on-2 for Manhattan. Rich Williams. And he gets the roll.
A mistake by David Lowry. He's 15 feet from the basket. Nobody is covering him, and he passed up a shot. 4-point swing.
Williams with a terrific drive along the baseline. With Isaiah Williams in the lineup this year, Iona is 10-4. Without him, they are 1-4. They're very happy to have him and working out of the starting lineup these days. Donovan Cates connects from the corner. There's Lowry, who can be used as a point forward at times.
Manhattan offensively is basically leaving the free throw line to the top of the key wide open. Anytime Iona wants the ball there, they can get it and they won't be covered.
Poole from 17.
If you want to know why Manhattan is good, listen to these numbers. They've got 3,000 point scores 4 guys average double figures. 4 others are completely capable of scoring double figures anytime they want. This is a balanced offense.
Very deep, very talented. 7-3 in the MAC this year, in 3rd place right now, trailing only Canisius and these Iona Gales.
The offensive goal for the Jaspers is they want to be able to go inside and get 54 post touches and a nice piece of defense coming from the weak side by Mike Poole. He might be that X factor that both these coaches talked about today, somebody that maybe wasn't expected to have a prominent role but finds a way to impact the game.
Tim, I've got an X factor for you. Each of the last 2 years, Emi Andujar has beaten Iona on last-second shots. And when you were talking to different Iona players today, his name came up frequently, didn't it?
Well, it's shoot-around today as Lowry attacks the rim. The name that kept coming up was Emi Andujar. The coaches mentioned that he's an impact player with his dribbling and his driving. So far, he's been a little bit on the quiet side.
Maybe he's just waiting for his time late in regulation. That is Andujar right there, who was fouled underneath the basket. Foul on Lowry. Just the 5th team foul, a non-shooting foul, and so Andujar will not go to the line. Beeman triggers into Andujar out there with Alvarado, Pankey, and Cates. Cates steps back for 3. Iona ball.
This game was frenetic. It was so high energy. And right now, it's changed. The energy level has dropped substantially.
Williams knocks it out of bounds, and we talked in the first half about the relative lack of depth for Iona, really going with only 8 players. They've suffered some injuries. Manhattan's bench is much deeper, and we talked about how that might come into play in the second half.
But what a rivalry this is. 8.5 miles separate them. We've got a standing room only crowd. It's really loud in here. And these guys don't like each other very much at all, even though they play against each other all summer.
They've had one bloodied nose so far. And back-to-back dunks from Lowry.
Well, 4 games ago, we were in here and we saw David Lowry get benched in the second half against Canisius because his energy level was low. He's got 2 dunks in the second half and has played a fabulous game.
Part of an 11-5 stretch for Iona after allowing Manhattan the first 11 points of this half. Richards is checked back in for Manhattan.
I would imagine that if somebody told Steve Masiello that Beeman and Andujar would combine for 6 and he'd be tied, I think he'd be thrilled.
Lowry with the block shot. After the dunks, he looks up at the student section, pumps his chest. Another court storm here tonight.
Good possibility, and Steve Masiello said today that Emi Andujar is his most important player so far in this contest. Has not taken a shot, no free throw attempts.
He's a junior from the Bronx out of Rice High School. Sean Armand kicks it back out to English for a wide open 3. Ball knocked out of bounds by Mike Poole. The Jaspers will keep possession.
Really like the defense. The MAC is such a strong zone league. And what that means is that offensive rebounds are going to be obviously there. That's an offensive rebound turned into a three-point play. Remember, Doug, the easiest time to get a three is on an offensive rebound because the defense is attacking into the lane.
Richards denied by Williams. Iona's defense has picked up once again. English, 2 in a row. How about this game of runs? A 14-0 burst by Manhattan to take control has been answered right back by the Gales. Both teams shooting well from the perimeter. Both, as you see, 6 for 16. Beeman make it 7 for 17 for the Jaspers.
Notice the way when Beeman shoots, he kicks his legs like Reggie Miller used to do to try to draw fouls. I don't know how he can make it so well.
Armand draws the contact in the foul.
Remember talking to Momo Jones, one of the great guards in Gale history, said that Sean Armand is the best shooter that he's ever seen. And if you're looking now for a reason why Manhattan is struggling, they rely on high energy so much. If their energy ever drops, they get exposed a little bit on the defensive end. We've seen 2 A.J. English threes, and now Sean Armand's going to get a chance for a three-point play.
Now, Tim, you referenced Momo Jones, last year's scoring champion and player of the year in the MAC. He's playing professionally over in Japan right now. And if he happens to be watching on ESPN3, his good buddy Sean Armand, when I asked him, how emotional were you after last year's MAC championship? He said there were a lot of tears in the locker room. I said, were you crying? He said, no, I'm from Brooklyn. I don't cry. But Momo's from Harlem. He cries. Talk about some New York rivalries even within the team. Here's Alvarado. Williams works his way to the basket, and he works his way to the line.
Now, I'm really impressed at the way Iona defends in this game. They did a little half-court trap, and now they went back into a 1-1-3. They're giving a lot of different looks, and that's what this league is all about. The guard play is stupendous, and they really play a lot of zone. And I love that idea because with the restricted area and with the freedom of movement rules, it's so hard to take charges. If you don't have great shot blockers, you've got to mix your defenses, and both Cruz and Massiello are masters in that area.
Lowry, who just picked up his second foul, grabs the rebound. 7 fouls against Iona here in the second half, just 2 called against Manhattan. Poole turns and shoots.
I'm going to tell you right now, Manhattan will not win this game without George Beeman becoming more of a factor on the offensive end. So far in this game, the Gales have pitched a shutout against George Beeman.
Is that more on Beeman or on his teammates?
I think it's on Beeman. I mean, it's a team sport, so everybody's involved, but he is a great player, and he has not been as active attacking the basket. He's got 9 points, but I think he's capable of so much more.
Alvarado attacks. And it's been all Iona over the last 5 minutes. Armand leaves his feet. Fortunate to get the ball back out to English. That's a 2-point shot. Lowry in the right spot, and he was fouled.
One of the great improvements for the Gales this year has been on the glass. They're flat out a weak rebounding team, And earlier this week, they went to Quinnipiac, who dominates people on the glass. That's a big physical team. They had out-rebounded 49 straight of their opponents, and somehow, I have no idea how, Iona won that rebounding battle by 2.
Iona's been playing well lately. They've won 3 in a row, 5 of their last 6 to keep up with the leaders in the conference. They are a half game back of Canisius. And Manhattan is 1 game back of Iona pending the outcome here tonight.
Even though George Beeman's a pure scorer, he's also the team's leading rebounder, so he can impact the game in a lot of ways. And we talked about the marquee matchup of Armand and Beeman. They've kind of canceled each other out.
Shane Richards off a nice set. Hits the 3. Reach-in foul against the Jaspers. George Beeman and the Jaspers find themselves down 5 to the game. Put in his honor before the ball game, and he has been very emotional. And as you see, he continues to look into the camera saying thank you.
The other MAC player in the Naismith Hall of Fame, Calvin Murphy.
Pretty good one. Former Niagara scoring ace.
Talking about really good rivalries, that you can't say that this is the best rivalry in the conference. They have a pretty good one up there in Buffalo, don't they?
They do. Canisius and Niagara separated by only about a 30-minute drive, and last Wednesday they played another classic. They'll play one more time. There are other rivalries that at times have been good. Siena and Marist, when both teams are good, have a good rivalry. But for my money in recent years, this one's been as good as any in the conference. Poole, the inbound man. English leans into the defender, doesn't get the call, and here's Beeman with a basketball.
Look at the length up top defensively. Isaiah Williams has great coverage with his wingspan.
Beeman back to Richards, who's got all 9 of his points from beyond the arc tonight. Alvarado, strong move over Lowry. There's Emi Andujar.
Kind of knew he was going to get a bucket here soon.
He's just waiting until later in the game.
He does his best work under a minute, as we saw last year with the game winner.
Poole looks off the defender and knocks down another shot. Richards, the mid-range pull-up. Lowry working hard on the glass again.
Iona is finding a new way to win this game. Listen to this stat. They've made 10 threes or more in 9 of their last 12 games. So that's what they rely on. They only have 6 so far, so they're shooting a lot more mid-range shots, which is something they don't normally do.
There's a deep 3 from Armand, but he left it short. Foul against Williams.
Now, let's go back into one of the hidden game keys. Tim Cluse made a brilliant move on the skip pass. Rashawn Storrs was wide open. It was one of the blown assignments that they chart at Iona. He called the timeout. Now all of a sudden, the closeout and the coverage defensively has been so much better. I think it's all about the energy.
There's Tim Cluse. I think a lot of people who've not been on the bench or in the huddle, as you have, don't really understand how important some of those huddles are and how the coaches do truly make adjustments that can work.
Well, sometimes it's like a GPS. If you don't have the correct addressing, you're not going to get where you need to go. That was a GPS timeout to put in the correct destination.
Under 6 minutes remaining in regulation. The Jaspers with the basketball down by 5.
This is a trip that you want to keep a close eye on Shane Richards. They'd love to get him open.
Here's Ramel Brown. Draws a double team. Nice look. Andujar, though, missed the bunny. Gets it on the second try. Tough entry pass and a foul called against Andujar. Saturday, ESPNU brings you a full day of college basketball, including a pair of games featuring two of the nation's top teams. At 3 Eastern, Evansville faces undefeated and fourth-ranked. Both games also live on Watch ESPN.
Watching Wichita State. Keep an eye on them coming up. February 5th, they play in Terre Haute against Greg Lansing and the Sycamores at Indiana State. And they're chasing history, possibly a #1 seed overall. I'm not sure who's the Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year. Is it Clay Anthony Early or Fred Van Vliet?
I'd say it's Early. You talk about somebody who has improved by leaps and bounds throughout his college career to where he is right now. It's unbelievable.
If you say so, I believe you.
All right. We'll see what happens, in about 5 or 6 weeks. Now that we have just gotten past the midpoint of the conference season for a number of leagues, we'll start talking about that sort of thing. Pankey will shoot two.
What a luxury item for Ashton Pankey. Transferred last year from Maryland. And you come into a situation where you've got a year to get better in your redshirt year. And you practice against Ramel Brown every day. He's got a huge, massive wingspan. A great basketball body. And when Ramel Brown leaves and Pankey gets featured, next year is going to be a big year for number 30 in green.
Well, how come sometimes players transfer back from a power conference team to a, quote, mid-major level and they don't dominate? Based on pure physical ability, they were recruited sometimes to play at a higher level and it didn't work out for whatever reason. And the expectation is always that they can come to this level and dominate. Doesn't always work out that way.
Sometimes kids get recruited based on AAU. They're fast break phenoms. They dunk in transition and their profile gets inflated. Sometimes they've got a great body but a low energy system. But I think Pankey is going to be really good.
Andujar the rebound. Leave it for Beeman. .422 to go in regulation. Iona's lead has been cut back to 2. English. Sophomore from Wilmington, Delaware, makes it a 4-point lead.
A little bit lower scoring than I would have expected, Doug. The two top scoring teams in the league.
Cates off the mark. Kind of a slow motion break there. The ball gets tied up. They used so much energy in that first half, it would only be natural that there might be a lull in there at second half. But when we come, they used to be members of the MAC, and when they play early season games in November or December, there's just as much passion in the building as we are feeling here tonight as the Gales take on the Jaspers. 66-62 Iona, 3:41 on the clock. Iona's largest lead has been 8. Manhattan's was 6. Lowry steps through the double team and the foul before the shot. Well, David Lowry, as you've talked about, has really shown good energy here tonight, especially in the second half.
This is the most passion that I've seen him in 2 years. He's very skilled. Big body, tough cover, and with him coming off the bench, it's probably a good thing because he sits there for 5 minutes, he watches the action, he gets a sense of the flow, the pace slows down a little bit, plus by coming in off the bench, he doesn't get those quick fouls that could hamper his progress.
He's the max leading shooter from the floor at 56%. He has struggled this year at the free throw line, but a couple of swishes there to give him 16 points. Good balance for Iona so far tonight. He's got 16. Poole has 16. Armand 14. And English has 13. Andujar. And a foul against Poole. Third foul on Poole. And that is number 10 on Iona. Andujar, who has all 4 of his points over the last 4 minutes, goes to the line to shoot 2. And from that graphic, you can see what's at stake. Canisius already has moved to 9-2. Iona trying to match them with a win here tonight. The Jaspers, meanwhile, trying to pull into a tie for second place with the Gales. And coming up, you can see Manhattan take on Canisius at 7 o'clock Eastern on ESPN here. And another chance to see Billy Barron and the Golden Griffins, who, Tim, you and I saw here 2 weeks ago, put on a show.
Very skilled, Jimmer Fredette type of player. 38 days from right now is the conference championship in Springfield. If you ask me who's going to be there, I don't know. I have no idea. There are multiple teams that could get hot at the right time. And these two would be right near the top of that list.
Lowry somehow gets that shot to go.
My player of the game is David Lowry at this point. He's so skilled dribbling the basketball. That's with his offhand drawing the contact from Pankey. At this point in time, Pankey's playing hard. I would find a way to get Ramel Brown on the court.
Right on cue, here comes Ramel Brown.
A trip where you put the ball in Ramel Brown's hands in the low post. He can score, but he's also an excellent passer.
Timeout. Lead is back to 8. Off the timeout, Steve Masiello has Hemi Andujar, Ramel Brown, Michael Alvarado, George Beeman, and Shane Richards on the floor. Foul off the ball. Williams got in the way of Andujar, who was trying to cut through the lane. Would that have been called a foul a year ago?
Absolutely not. That's the primary play. When somebody's going through, you get a little forearm to slow the progress. And this is really valuable for Manhattan. Why? Because it stops the clock. They get free throws, but most important, if he makes that second one, it allows them to go ahead and set up that full court pressure. Trust me, this is going to be a press where the heat will be brought. They're going to be very physical.
Williams in, Richards out. Draws the double team. Here's Lowry. Williams lets fly. Make that Mike Poole, who knocks it down and makes it a 9-point game.
This is not a time to be patient. The clock is running. They're down big. They need to get some action to the rim.
Alvarado puts up an air ball. Brown quickly back up to the rim. And 12:30 12:30 Eastern, Virginia faces 18th ranked Pittsburgh on a special early edition of ACC Sunday Night Basketball, followed at 2:30 by a Pac-12 showdown between UCLA and Oregon State.
So, Doug, who are you picking on Sunday?
I'm rooting for the Broncos because I want for Peyton Manning to win again. Armand misses, but I'm afraid the Seahawks, about 25 miles south and west of where we sit right now, are going to wind up raising the championship trophy of the NFL. How about you?
I'm a big Peyton Manning fan as well, and I'm definitely going for him.
Being from Michigan, are you a Lions fan?
I would like to be. Someday I would like to be.
1:24 remaining in our rivalry game here in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. Alvarado, wild shot. Bodies everywhere. Timeout called for Iona. Well, we showed you a few minutes ago the thrilling finish.
Shots today by A.J. English.
There's the quote that was in the New York Times earlier today. Steve Masiello saying, "I've played in Kentucky, Louisville," and talking about this rivalry, he says there is no difference in the feelings for him. Beeman gives up the foul, and that is the 10th for the Jaspers.
I made the comment earlier this half that if George Beeman did not have an opportunity to take this game over with his scoring, that I didn't believe Manhattan would have a chance to win this game. He's been fine. He plays hard, but he's capable of so much more, and you can't put a road loss on one player. But I'm such a huge fan of the diversity of his attack. The defense has been really strong on Mr. Beeman.
Beeman has 9 points so far. English, one of 4 double-figure scores for Iona. Richards tries to curl to get open. Instead, it's Beeman. Well, let's take a look at our ESPNU major moment.
The second half, a skip pass where Sean Storrs was left wide open. Nobody even near him. Tim Cluse called a timeout. They chart blown assignments. That was one. The resilience that this team has shown since that timeout. I've only counted 2 open shots by Manhattan. Everything else has had a hand up, and that's been the #1 key. Nice job by Tim Cluse.
Andujar gets a pair, makes it a 6-point game once again. Intentional foul call.
Intentional foul. Intentional foul number 31, Alvarado.
And it goes against Alvarado.
2 shots.
Watch the right side of your screen as we show you the play one more time.
Critical mistake. You cut the lead to 6. I appreciate the fact that he's trying to create contact, but you just can't grab a guy away from the ball. You have to make a play on the ball.
And so it's David Lowry.
Don't you like to see when the big guys get chosen to shoot the technical fouls? Especially because of the fact that David Lowry is a man that struggles mightily with his free throws. He shot the free throws because he was the one held. That was not a technical foul.
And he is 9 of 11 from the line tonight, in spite of being a 48% shooter on the year.
I know this isn't as close as what we've seen. Is this enough for fans to rush the court?
In this day and age, yes. I'm going to say they are not going to do it tonight. What do you think?
I think you're probably right.
The threshold for storming is much less than it used to be, but I have a feeling we're not going to be stormed here tonight if this score holds. Andujar is fouled by A.J. English. Our Pepsi Max player of the game, David Lowry.
Leads the conference in field goal percentage. Why? Because he's got a nice array of moves and he takes open shots. A big man with a handle and the ability to finish with his left hand.
There is our Pepsi Max player of the game as Andujar hits the free throw. Pretty good stat line, 6 for 7. That'll keep him on top of the field goal percentage race in the conference.
And the beauty of his attack is he did it at both ends. Going up against Ramel Brown is a tough challenge, and they needed the big body of David Lowry.
Certainly we anticipated that the Jaspers would be the ones, Tim, who would have the advantage inside, but Lowry was able to turn the tables. And so the shooter at the line is Sean Armand, the 6'5" tri-captain. He, along with Bowman and Poole, share the captain's responsibilities for Iona.
Playing against this Manhattan zone is always a challenge, and Tim Cluse was telling me yesterday that he's gone head-to-head with Bill Self at Kansas. He's coached against Gary Williams at Maryland, coached against Jim Boeheim at Syracuse, and he's done it with a lot less talent than those teams. Over the course of his career, he's seen a lot. He's a very good coach.
Sean Armand, rather than attacking the basket, pulls it back out, and then Beeman gives up the foul. Well, Tim, I'd say by and large it's been a fairly cleanly played ball game. Sportsmanship has been a part of this rivalry. We've not seen any chippiness, just good, hard, intense play.
And both of these teams look to me like they're capable of playing in the NCAA this year. Canisius right now would have to be the favorite. They're in first place, and Billy Barron is the best player in the MAC. Quinnipiac, Ryder, Siena. I mean, there was some really good balance at the top of the Metro Atlantic Conference.
Williams the steal. And the exclamation point. Well, the final score won't represent just how competitive this ball game has been. It's a 12-point Iona lead, and Armand will let the final ticks go off the clock. 85-70.